Welcome to the video. This is a video that I'm recording as part of my Rants and Reflections series, which is really my attempt to make sense of the world as I see it. And I'm not going to talk about music today. This one is about UK politics. So if that's not for you, then I'll see you next time. But I've been exercised by politics over the last couple of months. Things just don't seem to be quite right. And I was reminded of something because as an article I'm going to share a few bits of today, but it reminded me of something that I did last year before the last general election. So anyway, I'll get to that. So I've got friends and colleagues, if you like, who are on both sides of the political spectrum. People who are left-leaning and loud about it, and people who are right-leaning and maybe not so loud but still very determined conservatives. And I've got a mixture of all these people who I come into fairly regular contact with, and I find that I don't agree with any of them. But why? I don't particularly want to be judgmental or harsh on other people, but there's a few things that I've made a note of here that kind of make me think the way I do when it comes to politics. Firstly, I think that people live very, very busy lives. They haven't got the time to read newspapers or online articles every day, watch videos of commentary, watch long form interviews. People are still working, and maybe also, politics is not that interesting to them. They're not interested in the machinations and why politicians behave and communicate the way that they do in the way that I do. And they get their news maybe from the BBC or Sky News, The Guardian, The Telegraph, The Times, Channel 4 News, or whatever it might be. And so they connect with politics on a more sporadic or kind of periodic basis, and maybe around a general election. Also, I think a lot of people are traditionalists. They vote the way that they've kind of always voted. Maybe it's part of the family tradition to vote Conservative or to vote Labour. And in some, I think belonging is very important too. And people I think this goes for all of us because we've all got biases. So I'm not casting aspersions on people, but I think people we all feel this more comfortable when we're hanging out with people who are kind of sympathetic with our own views. So we kind of self-select a certain tribe that we prefer to belong to them. And for me or anyone to be ultra critical of people who engage with politics in that sort of way is crazy, really. I mean, it's an unreasonable expectation to think that people will take a forensic, rational approach to their politics and understanding the world. It just doesn't happen that way. But I think our political system is broken in the UK, and those of you who do take an interest in this subject know that is a common theme, and it's way beyond the UK as well. Now, for me, I've always, I've been a student, I've been a practitioner, I've been a teacher of things like negotiation and communication strategy, persuasion, if you like, and I'm pretty tuned in to why politicians say the things that they do. I mean, I've been hearing selling messages for best part of 40 years in my career. So what I will say is that I don't think what politicians tell us and the way they communicate to us, I don't think any of that is an accident. Apart from a few notable exceptions here and there. But there are communication strategists who are working day and night in making sure that the correct message goes out on behalf of the leader or the party that they're representing. But I've become absolutely sick and tired of politicians right now blaming everything on the previous government. 14 years of Tory rule has put us in the situation where we are today. But before that, to be fair, the Tories were saying we had, I think it was 13 years of Labour rule. It was the same tired, kind of miserable just bleating about the other people. And I think it's done purely as a way to suppress debate. When a politician is saying, well, this is happening because of the Tories. That's the current theme, obviously, because Labour are in power here. What they're trying to do is they're trying to suppress debate around the actual policies and the data. And you know, you can stomach that for a while, but we're 15, 16 months into a Labour government here in a 5-year term. And those ideas about blaming the previous government, to me, I think there's no place for them anymore. I want to hear politicians and the commentators and those who are interviewing the politicians to concentrate on the policies and what's actually happening and why and how we can make things better. Now, I did kind of propose maybe a better way of judging politicians, leaders, parties, governments before the last general election, as I kind of tried to put together a few criteria that would be a standard that an ideal leader, party, government, an ideal standard that they could aspire to and be judged against. And that was kind of my way of thinking about how can I make a more rational judgment, less of an emotional and biased judgment, and trying to suppress my bias as best I can. But also I kind of offered it to the few people who probably watched that video to say, well, look, maybe this is something that you can think about as well. And what triggered this video today is that I found an article a week or two ago where someone else had kind of done something very similar. And I thought, I'm going to revisit those criteria, and I'm going to share both in this particular video. I was going to do, after the general election last year in July, I was actually going to do a review of the Labour government's first 100 days. But it was so chaotic more generally, not just the party or the government, it was just politics in general and life, meant that I never got around to doing that. I never felt that I could give them a fair judgment. But after 15, 16 months, I think I'm going to be in a position where I can. So I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm going to have a follow-up to this video. But I'm offering this video as a bit of a reminder as to why I'm doing it, what those criteria are, and my judgment will come later. Now, if anybody else wants to engage in a discussion in the comments or use these criteria to make their own assessment of how well our politicians and the government is doing, then go right ahead. This is not my bid to stake a claim to part of the political commentary territory on YouTube. This is just one of my rants and reflection videos that pop up every few months, as I said at the outset, to try and help me make sense of the world. But yeah, by all means, pass a comment, have a bit of a debate if you wish. Hopefully that won't get out of hand. And please try not to be tribal. I'm trying not to be tribal here. I respect everybody's opinion, political opinion. Let them vote who they want to vote for. It's not my job. I mean, the reason why I vote the way I do, and I've said before that I'm a floating voter, is born of 60 odd years of life. Things that have worked for me, things that values, if you like, that are more in tune with the values that have been useful for me. And so if you are of a different political persuasion, and as I say, mine's pretty sketchy, then go right ahead. But don't just please don't, if you do comment, please just don't say these are the bad guys and these are the good guys, because that's just not interesting to me, and maybe not so interesting to other viewers as well. So what did I talk about in my criteria? Well, the first one, I can't remember how many there was. I didn't number these, but here we go. The first one, and I'm going to read what I said last year. First one is I expect leaders, politicians and governments, and this includes my local MP, is be clever, be more intelligent than most of the voting population, equal perhaps to those who are really successful in business. I respect people who are clever, and I can look up to them and think these people have got a wisdom and a skill set that's really going to help my area or the country at large. Number 2, be humble. Politicians don't know everything. None of us do. So be open about the shortcomings in your knowledge, that's the MP or the leader, and don't pretend to have an informed perspective on every last issue that comes across the political agenda or the desk, as it were. Express doubt occasionally. The best politicians do express some doubt. And then, this has become really important, I think, in the last year or two. Let others express their doubts too. The wider the range of opinion, the better. Number 3, have a vision for the country and your constituency, so the local area that you represent. Why should we lend politicians our votes unless the politician is clear about what it is they intend to do to improve the lives of those they are representing? Be an exceptional communicator of that vision, You, the politician, needs to inform and inspire. So don't speak in cliches, be authentic and committed, and don't forget nuance and detail. Number 5, be courageous and decisive. You won't get everything right, but don't equivocate or try to appeal to every point of view. At the same time, accept that government or your party does not have all the answers to society's problems. Nobody does. Number 6, acknowledge that being a policymaker and a leader involves trade-offs, not only difficult decisions. How many times have we heard politicians saying, we're making the difficult decisions? It's BS. Anyone can say they're making difficult decisions, but it takes honesty and integrity to explain trade-offs, telling people what they're going to give up in exchange for something better. Be incorruptible. Have sufficient independent financial resources so that you cannot be bought by special interest lobbyists. We used to have in this country a parliament that was full of people who were business types or lawyers or doctors, and they had their own sources of income. They weren't the career politicians that we have today, where people have gone from university studying PPE and gone straight into political advisory role and then become an MP or a candidate and then an MP and so on. We used to have people who had already made their mark in the world, who before they started to pontificate and start making a contribution to the policy making agenda. So, and it was easier for them to be less corruptible. It's preferable. This is the note I'd add as a supplementary note. It's preferable that you've built up a successful career outside of politics before yourself put yourself forward for leadership, which is kind of what I've just been saying. 3 more. Be exceptionally good at implementation. Your vision and your promises are worthless unless you have demonstrable ability to implement your policies amid the complexity, interdependency, and trade-offs involved in moving things forward in the direction of tangible improvement. People have to be really good at making things happen. Not just talking about making things happen, but actually making things happen. Be a servant leader. This is a term that comes out of business. So make your priority the interests of the people in the country. It's not enough to profess to manage the economy, for example, to increase aggregate gross domestic product, if per capita, per person, gross domestic product, GDP, is also not increasing. So if there are more people in the country, but the amount of economic activity aggregates at the same level, then on average, the individuals are going to be poorer. And that's the situation we have in the UK, where we're getting some growth in GDP. It's anemic, and it has been for a number of years. But per capita GDP is worse than stalling. It's starting to go backwards. Finally, be virtuous rather than a signaler of virtue. We want to look up to politicians and leaders, not be suspicious of them or their motives. So that was my criteria, and that's how I'm going to make an assessment of the Labour government after 15, 16 months, and I'll come back to this in the days to come. But I'm going to add something else, which is kind of just add a little bit more colour to it. And this has come out from an article by a commentator called Clive Pinder in the Daily Sceptic, and the headline on the article was "Britain needs a new backbone." And he came up with a number of criteria. They're shorter than what I've said, so I'll quickly rattle through them. Number 1, equality, not equity. Same rules for all. No outcome quotas, no identity grading. Pass the test, not the checklist. And if anyone's in any doubt, equality effectively means equality of opportunity. Equity means equality of outcome. So basically, in a progressive taxation system, is if the people who earned the most paid the most tax, and it was all about equalizing how much money people have got access to every month, every week, every year, then that would be equity. But equality is giving everyone a fair chance. Go and do what you can do with what you've got and see if you can build a good life. Number 2, an impartial state. If public tax-funded bodies act as activists, they breach their contract. Want to wave a flag at work? Try semaphore at the job centre. So, not my words. This is Clive Pinder's. Number 3, facts before feelings. No policy without data, transparency and measurable goals. I like this one. When the data says no, feelings don't get a vote. Number 4, one law evenly forced, including terror offences. Peaceful protest is protected. Intimidation is punished. Prescribed support is punished. March if you must. Menace and you get a chauffeur with blue lights and a room at His Majesty's pleasure. Next one, free speech within the law and no compelled belief. No ideological oaths, no safe spaces. Record crimes, not opinions. Now there's a statistic that's going around right now that at the moment the UK the police are arresting or at least interviewing about 12,000 people a year for speech offences. Maybe not criminal offences, but something that is not welcomed by the police and the state. Anyway, I'm going to come back to free speech on the next occasion. Protect people, not feelings. Tackle menace, not memes. Next one, integration as a civic contrast. This is something around immigration and citizenship. Making sure it's tied to our English language, cultural respect, and civic loyalty. If you want the passport, learn the code and the password. Number 7, I think, teach knowledge, not creeds. Education must prioritise literacy, numeracy, science, open minds, history, and British civics. Number 8, target ideology, not demographics. It is Islamist extremism, not the Islam background that triggers intervention. Hunt the wolf by its teeth, not by its fur. Hopefully that'll make sense. And the last one, sunlight on money and networks. Trace foreign funding and influence. Defund miscreants. No sunlight, no subsidies. Anyway, that's some additional colour to the picture, as it were. But these criteria that I put together, that's what I'm going to make in my judgment on the Labour government in the next video in this series. So if you've got this far, you're obviously interested in politics and interested in debate, perhaps. But if you have, thanks for watching, and I'll see you for what it's worth with my assessment on the Labour government. And I'll see you very soon. Cheers. Bye for now.